Just in case anyone else was confused the first time they read it, which I doubt they were, but the invisible stalker is given a quarry, meaning prey or target. It is not given its own pit of rocks. I'm not going to tell you exactly how long it took me to figure that out, but the short answer is too long. Hello, my name is Matt, and welcome to My Hidden Nerdy Side, a channel created by a nerd who doesn't have many nerdy friends, and so I must rant to you, and today we're tackling the unseen elemental assassin known as the Invisible Stalker. We're going to take a look at their lore, info, and abilities, and then build an encounter you can steal, modify, and plop directly into your D&D games. Now, if you are well aware of the lore and mechanics behind the Invisible Stalker, then feel free to pop on over to the timestamp right here so you can jump straight to the encounter itself. I'll leave a clickable version in the description below. Alright, let's take a look at Invisible Stalkers. To make sure this video is a decent length, we'll only be pulling the Invisible Stalker lore, info, and abilities that exist within the monster manual, all of which can be found on page 192. So Invisible Stalkers are air elementals that have been summoned from their native plane and transformed to perform a specific task. This task involves either hunting someone, killing someone, or retrieving an object. If the job given to the Invisible Stalker doesn't slot into those three categories, the elemental is released back to its plane. It also returns to its plane upon defeat, if the magic binding it to the material plane expires, or if its summoner dies. However, if the job does fall into one of those categories, it completes its job and then returns to its summoner for its next assignment. The elemental is forced to serve, and when I say forced, I mean it. Invisible Stalkers at best really don't want to serve their summoner, and at worst will try and find a way out of their magical contract if it's worded poorly. And as an elemental, an Invisible Stalker doesn't need to sleep, eat, drink, or breathe. But the real reason why these guys are so dangerous is because they are always invisible. You may be able to slightly hear or feel its presence, but it remains invisible even when it attacks. And if you do have magic that can see invisible creatures, an Invisible Stalker only appears as a faint outline. Now, looking at their actions and abilities, which can also be found on page 192 of the Monster Manual, there is some pretty nutty stuff. To start, the Invisible Stalker is immune to almost every single condition that would impede its movement. It also knows the direction and distance from its target so long as they are on the same plane of existence. So if your players try and hide someone the Stalker is after, it's not gonna go too well. It can also make 2 slam attacks, has quite a high perception and stealth bonus, and it can move really fast. But their juiciest ability is something we've already talked about, which is they are always invisible. Now, I'll toss the rules for unseen attackers and targets quickly on screen here so you can get the gist of the situation. But basically, unless your party has a way to spot invisible creatures, the Invisible Stalker is always going to have advantage on its attacks, and your players will always have disadvantage on attacks against the Stalker. This immediately makes them much more difficult to deal with than your average monsters. On top of that, if the Invisible Stalker uses its action to hide, the encounter is pretty much over unless your players can get really creative. Okay, so now that we've gone over the basic Invisible Stalker lore, info, and abilities, let's start crafting an encounter. This encounter/quest will be aimed at parties level 4 to 9 depending on how difficult you want to make it, and last 2 to 3 sessions depending on how much you want to stretch it out. The party's motivation should always be tailored to the campaign, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just say your party needs something from a particular organization, but they will not deal with the party until their current issue is resolved. Now, the only requirements you need to have in your game to make this encounter work is a world that has a decent-sized town, a secret location in your world that is near impossible to find, a villainous figure with the power to summon an invisible stalker and who wants to know the whereabouts of the secret location, and a wealthy organization. The example organization we'll use for this encounter is the Golden Palm, and they will be an organization of wealthy merchants. What your party will need that is in possession of these merchants are 5 clues that reveal where the secret location is, which is where their main quest will continue. The reason why the merchants are organizing to visit this place is because it's said to hold incredible riches. Why your party is after it can be something entirely different. Now, what the clues are will be up to you, but if someone has all 5 clues, they will know how to get to the secret location. However, make the clues so that the party will be able to figure it out even if they can only obtain 2 or 3 clues, since that's probably all they're gonna get. So your party will reach a town where the Golden Palm is supposed to be located. We'll say the town is called Dawnshire. When your party enters Dawnshire, there will be talks about a murder that took place last night, and the person who was murdered was a member of the Golden Palm named Marco. If the party goes to investigate, the body will have been removed and taken to the morgue. If the party investigates the scene of the crime, they'll notice nothing. No footprints, no leftover magical residue, no calling card, nothing. This will undoubtedly confuse the hell out of your party. If the party asks, the town guard will let them check out the body if they wish, and they'll notice the merchant was bludgeoned to death rather quickly. And at this point, this is when they'll see the Golden Palm embroidered on the merchant's tunic. If they investigate further, they'll also notice the merchant still has his coin pouch and valuables on him, which will lead your party to think either the thing responsible was after something specific, or killing the man was the sole purpose of its mission. You, as the DM, will know it's an invisible stalker, but the lack of actionable clues will leave your party dumbfounded. And normally that wouldn't be great, but for this scenario, it's okay, because they won't have to wait long to get more clues. Now, your party may ignore the body and go speak to the Golden Palm first, so the order of these events may be switched. But when your party speaks to the Golden Palm, they will be very secretive about the reason why the merchant was killed, but will be very adamant about trying to solve this murder. And so, if the party can figure out who or what is killing the merchants, they'll pay them handsomely. If the party asks for information about the secret location they are after, the Golden Palm will play dumb and say they have no idea what they're talking about. Make sure to start this quest later on in the day, so when the party is done checking out the crime scene and speaking to the Golden Palm, it will be dark. And as your party is making their way to an inn or somewhere else to spend the evening, they'll hear a commotion in an alleyway as they pass by. They will see 2 Golden Palm guards rushing down the alleyway to look at the corpse of another Golden Palm merchant named Federico. The guards will explain the merchant had a few too many drinks and asked us to turn away so he could take a leak. They only took their eyes off him for 30 seconds and then they heard a thud on the ground and saw he was dead. It will be clear from an insight check the guards are not lying, and an investigation check will show Federico was bludgeoned to death and the guards have piercing weapons, so they're probably in the clear. Federico will have his skull bashed in and will be covered in his own piss. Other than that, everything will be exactly the same as it was with Marco. His valuables are still on him, and they have no possible way to track the creature. However, if one of your players uses see invisibility, detect good and evil, or something along those lines, well, then the chase begins. The invisible stalker will do everything it can to get away, and the party will do whatever they can to stop it. Considering the situation and the fact the invisible stalker is much faster and is near impossible to stop, I'd place my bet on the invisible stalker getting away if the party is between levels 4 and 6. But anything can happen. If the party does end up defeating it then and there, then congratulations to them. They will find a note the invisible stalker dropped upon death, and the note will be one of the clues to the secret location. So your party gets a clue and can go speak to the Golden Palm about their reward and try to get more information out of them. But there are a lot of things that need to happen in order for them to be successful. So we're going to continue like the invisible stalker got away. At this point, the Golden Palm will start to become desperate and will tell the party everything. The Golden Palm got 5 clues from insert powerful or prophetic creature here, and it gave 5 of the higher ranking members 1 clue each. In order to prevent one merchant from getting too greedy and screwing each other over, they kept their clues secret until the Golden Palm was ready to move out. Both Marco and Federico had one of those clues. After Marco was killed, the Golden Palm made sure each of the remaining 4 members had guards that followed them everywhere. But now that Federico was killed despite that, they are unsure what to do. They will do whatever the party says they should do, and will give them the remaining 3 clues in exchange for stopping the killings. And at this point, Salazar, Vivica, and Dante will be the last remaining Golden Palm merchants who possess clues. And what your party does to try and trap the invisible stalker or prevent these killings is totally up to them, which makes predicting the outcome of this encounter near impossible. And that's what makes it so much fun. The invisible stalker will attack at night as per usual, but it's not a fool. It won't strike if it knows it can't kill and escape, so make sure to use your elemental assassin accordingly. But if combat does break out, it shouldn't be too difficult for the party, and that's okay. Because the fun from this encounter isn't from the combat, it's from allowing your party to use their brains to come up with a creative solution, and from giving them total control over the situation. That's the gist of this encounter. But one thing I highly recommend is when your players end up facing this villainous summoner later on when they've gotten more powerful, have 2 of his minions be invisible stalkers. This is a great way to show your party how much they've progressed and measure just how much stronger they've gotten. So, an investigation mission that will confuse your players and make them feel like they truly earned their reward for completing? I think this encounter is spicy enough. But how could we make it even spicier? Well, for higher level parties, you could add a second stalker. That way, if your party prioritizes the safety of one merchant, the other will meet its doom and your players will be put on their toes. You could also create homebrew in-game mechanics for dealing with invisible stalkers. This will help players who are absolutely stumped continue on with the quest. And finally, you could really flavor the way the stalker kills their targets to make the encounter truly memorable. Maybe the stalker snaps their victims' necks, twists their spine, or maybe give them a homebrew life-draining ability that leaves their corpse looking like a raisin. But of course, these are just some of the many ways you can use invisible stalkers in your Dungeons & Dragons campaign. There are tons of different ways to take this encounter and spice it up, so please let me know what you would do in the comment section below so I can nerd out over it and smack myself in the head for not thinking of it. Also, let me know if there are any creatures that you would like me to build an encounter for in my future videos. I'm going to try and put out at least one of these videos a week, so feel free to subscribe and share this video around if you liked it, and stay tuned for upcoming content. Thanks for watching and indulging my hidden nerdy side.